Hi everyone, I'm Nicole Kearney, the manager of BHL Australia. In this video, I'm going to explain how to prepare article data for upload into BHL. This is one of a series of videos explaining the key steps involved in making the articles on BHL discoverable. I encourage you to watch these videos, particularly the introduction explaining why it's so important that we add article data to BHL. Before you start, I strongly recommend that you read BHL's segments documentation prepared by Susan Lynch, Diana Duncan, and Joel Richard. You can find it using the document link on this slide. This document includes detailed information on each data element in our article data schema. It also covers the templates and tools I'll be demonstrating here. This video is intended to complement this written documentation. Preparing article data takes care and time, but hopefully this video will provide you with tips to make the work easier. My first tip is to start with a base data set wherever you can. This might come from a source outside of BHL, such as a publisher's website, or from an online database of articles. Or you might get a base data set by querying Wikidata or the Crossref API, or from BHL itself. This is article data I've downloaded from BHL for the occasional papers of the Bernese P. Bishop Museum. Many journals already have some article data on BHL, and it's vitally important that you check for this existing data so you don't create duplicate article records in BHL. I've prepared another video that demonstrates how to download existing article data from BHL, so feel free to pause this video, go and watch that one, and come back. The good thing about using a dataset of downloaded article data from BHL is that it includes all the fields you need to produce more article data. However, if there's no existing article data in BHL, you can download the BHL segment data template from the BHL dashboard. From the dashboard, click on Import Segments in the Data Import box, and then download one of the supplied templates. This will give you all the fields you need to gather article data for upload into BHL. This is also really useful if you're using data downloaded from somewhere else or gathered from somewhere else. You need to use these fields. But in this case, we have a base data set downloaded from BHL, even if it is only 4 articles across the entire journal. So I now need to check and gap fill this data, starting with volume 1. Missing articles should be inserted as new rows between the existing articles, and the existing data should be checked carefully. It's important to note here how BHL treats this existing data. If you make a correction, it will replace the existing value. If you leave a cell empty, there'll be no change to that existing value. And if you want to remove an existing value, you need to type null in the corresponding cell. When I'm gathering article data, the first thing I like to do is find the contents page in the volume because it's a list of article data. Now, our base data set includes only one article from volume 1, which appears to be this one. The title's slightly different in our downloaded data. It says Part 2 Fishes, and on the contents page, it says Birds and Fishes. So I'm just going to check that as I go through. I'm going to leave it like that, like leave the title as is for the moment. And when I scroll through, I'll double check and see what that article is actually all about. But for the moment, I can add issue 3 to that data set. So I've already enhanced the article data by adding 3 to that empty cell. I then use this contents page to fill in the rest of the articles. The article data for volume 1 now looks like this. I've added the missing articles and their author names and issue numbers. Now note that I've maintained the existing BHL segment ID for that one original article. And this ensures that any changes I make to the data for that article will override what's currently in BHL rather than create a duplicate article. Segment IDs will be automatically generated for the other articles when I upload the data into BHL. Now, there are no page numbers on this contents page, so I now need to scroll through the volume to gather these and also the BHL page IDs. Contents pages often contain abbreviated titles and abbreviated author names, so I'll also be checking these as I work through the volume to see if I can add more information. Now, in this volume, I found one additional article, which was part 1 of that existing article already in BHL, the one about birds. So part 1 was about birds, but part 2 was about fishes, and I put those in as 2 articles, whereas we had them as just 1. I've also checked each title, adding subtitles where they existed, and I've expanded author names wherever initials had been used in the contents page. And wherever possible, I've mapped the author names to existing BHL creator IDs to ensure that I don't create duplicate authors in BHL. I've then added the page numbers and the BHL page IDs for both the start and the end pages. Now, it's also important to note that the last page of an article is not always the last numbered page. In this example, the article text finishes there on page 247, but this page is followed by 3 plates on unnumbered pages. So the article actually finishes there. By using the BHL page ID for that page, I've ensured that the entire article is included, not just in the article data that I'm adding to BHL, but also it'll be included in the pre-generated PDF that will be generated when I upload this article data into BHL. There are also occasions when an article is not a consecutive chunk of pages. It's quite common in historic journals to find the plates for all articles in a volume bound together at the very end. We can attach disconnected plates to the correct article using the additional page IDs field. In this article, there are 2 plates that appear before the first page up there. So while this is technically a consecutive chunk of pages, if I put that first start page as that top illustration there, that's where everyone would land when they said view article from BHL. And I don't want them to land there. I want them to land on the first page of text of the article. So what I've done here is I've added the page IDs there for the top pages as additional page IDs. So I put those in the additional page IDs field, and that means they'll actually be put at the end of the article. And as for multiple authors, I've separated each value with a semicolon. So I do the same thing if those plates appeared right at the end of the volume and I wanted to connect them to that chunk of text pages there. So here's an example of my completed article data. There are 2 final fields in my spreadsheet that I haven't talked about yet. The one on the far right there is the contributor field. Contributors of data are credited in BHL just like contributors of content are, and I actually believe that it's just as important to contribute article data to BHL as it is to contribute the content in the first place. So the existing article for this journal was contributed by Rod Page via BioStore, and the rest was prepared by my team at BHL Australia. So I filled in our BHL AU code to ensure that we're credited for this work. The other field I've not yet mentioned is the DOI field. That existing segment also had an existing DOI, a BHL DOI. Now, I just left that DOI in the spreadsheet because it was an existing piece of data, but it's important to note here that you cannot add or edit a BHL DOI via this spreadsheet upload. Spreadsheet uploads can only be used to add or edit external DOIs, so those non-BHL DOIs. If there are existing non-BHL DOIs, external DOIs, for the journal that you're working on, please do add them to BHL. DOIs are a critical part of a publication's bibliographic metadata and should be included wherever they exist. Now, this is the article data for another journal, for Nootsia, the Journal of the Western Australian Herbarium. They've recently assigned DOIs to their back issues, their journal, all of which are on BHL. External DOIs such as these can and should be added via the spreadsheet upload tool. So once you've gone over your data with a fine-tooth comb and you're ready to upload it into BHL, I encourage you to watch the next video in this series, which demonstrates how to upload article data into BHL and reveals all the wonderful things that happen to BHL content when you add article data. Before I end this video, I want to again share the link to the segments documentation. I've just given you a very brief overview of the process. The segments documentation goes into much more detail, and I still refer to that documentation all the time, even though I've been doing this work for years. So thank you for listening and for your future efforts making the articles on BHL discoverable. I encourage you to watch the other videos in this series, and if you have any questions, please submit a Gemini ticket to BHL's Persistent Identifier Working Group, PIWG, or contact us via the BHL staff listserv. Thanks again.